Welcome to the second session of the workshop on rapid gender assessment in tourism. Session number 2 is about gender rapid assessment for tourism. So today we are going to learn the second matrix, which is quite linked to gender responsive tourism. So welcome. So this is today's agenda, March 9, 2022. We are going to answer this question, how to conduct a rapid gender assessment. Today, we are going to learn the matrix 2. Then we are going to I'm going to create 2 groups because we are going to put into practice matrix number 2. I really want to help you to really to maximize the benefit of your rapid gender assessment through this matrix. And then I'm going to offer you some extra tips for a correct rapid gender assessment in tourism. So I'm going to share with you tips that I have learned during my professional career, are very practical tips. And then final thought, and then we wrapping it up, and then we finish the workshop. So in this model, we have this very important question that we are going to answer. And in this model, you will learn the gender responsive tourism matrix, which is matrix number 2, and the most important elements related to it. So let me introduce you the matrix. This is the second matrix, sorry. This is the second matrix that we are going to learn today. So this matrix is a brand new matrix that was developed for this workshop, because we really this matrix is going to maximize your benefits of your rapid gender assessment in tourism. So what are the objectives of this matrix? First, this matrix, through this matrix, you are going to understand the causes of gender equality in tourism, as well as the factors that may support gender equality in tourism. In this matrix, what you have to do here, in this matrix, based on the matrix 1, you are going to place the main questions that you are going to answer through your rapid gender assessment. This means that with the matrix number 1, you know the challenge and gaps that you want to reduce through your rapid gender assessment. And then we need some questions to answer, right? So this matrix is going to allow us to really know what are the main questions that I have to answer through my rapid gender assessment. These questions are linked to the what, the why, and the how. We learned that in session number 1, right? So we have 3 main questions: the what is happening, what is the picture right now in this particular context related to tourism. But then I want to know why this is happening, why we have gender pay gap, why we have many women working in tourism, that's an opportunity for sure, why we have the culture of change in my context, why this is happening. But we want to answer how, what are the mechanisms that are promoting a challenge or an opportunity. So in this matrix, we are going to display the key questions that we really want to answer that are linked to the matrix number 1. It's supposed that before completing matrix 1, and in between matrix 1 and matrix 2, you already review some secondary data collection. You know what are the main reference, you know what are the main assessment, you know what are the main articles that are going to help you to carry out your rapid gender assessment. For that reason, it's supposed that it's going to be easier to really know what are the main questions that you have to display in this matrix. Another point, this matrix, now we are presenting the matrix number 2 in a very general terms, right? You are seeing here the gender responsive tourism matrix, but you can streamline this matrix. This means that maybe you are going to conduct a rapid gender assessment to inform a new tourist national strategy. So this matrix is going to be only focused on the main priorities that national tourist strategy want to achieve. Or maybe you are going to create this matrix based on a particular project. Or maybe you are going to base that matrix only in related to one type of tourism, maybe a matrix on community-based tourism, or maybe a matrix on the link between MICE industry and tourism. So it's very flexible, the way you can create this matrix. This only is like the main idea, how this matrix look like, okay? So on the vertical axis, you have the 6 domains of analysis. These 6 domains of analysis, I really want to tell you this, are quite linked to those used for violence against women. So these 6 domains are, you will see if you check this information, you will see that many other metrics related to gender analysis are using these domains to analyze the violence against women at global level. So I really think, I am convinced on this, that these 6 domains are very important to consider in tourism, because as you know, tourism is full of women. The white workers in tourism are women, and we really need to unpack the reality of women in tourism. So, so these 6 domains are going to help us to really unpack the main barriers and opportunities that we can find in tourism. For that reason, it's really important matrix 1, because you have the full pictures of your challenge and opportunity as well. And then you see these 6 domains, and you can work better your question. You can have a better idea how you want to conduct, how you want to create your own rapid gender assessment in tourism. As you may know, all these domains are quite related each other, but this is a way to unpack the power dynamics that are the main cause of gender inequality in tourism. And we also want to unpack opportunities that are supporting gender equality in tourism. So let's review each of these 6 domains of analysis. The first domain is on public sectors. So here we have the law, we have the policies, we have the regulations, and we have governance as well. So when we are talking about public sector, we are talking about, of course, the main tourist institutions that are creating policies tailor-made for tourism. But we also, and you know this, since tourism is a mainstream activities, is quite linked to other public sectors, right? So we really need to have a very good understanding on how tourism is linked to other administrations, institutions that maybe are not working tourism, but are very important for tourism. So we really need to understand how gender equality is embedded in this other kind of public sectors that are quite linked to tourist development as well. So we need to review the laws, the policies of, for sure, all kind of regulations as well in terms of working condition and entrepreneurship, how public sector is working with community and civil society, to what extent, for example, do law are promoting leadership or the promotion of women in leadership positions. So all this kind of issue we have to analyze when we are covering the public sector first domain. Then we have the second one, the second domain, and this is about the private sector. As you may know, private sector is a key stakeholder for tourism. And the private sector, when we consider this domain in our gender rapid assessment, we have to check the law, the policies, regulation, and also the institutional practices. That means, do we have outsourcing company working in tourist development? What is the impact of this outsourcing company in women that are working in an hotel, for example? So we need to understand this is institutional practices. What are the gender impact of all these institutional practices that are coming from the private sector? In terms of regulations or policies, at the global level, we have tools and elements that are promoting gender equality at the core of the private sector. For example, the 10 principles for empowerment of women, right? So we can create that kind of environments that are going to promote gender equality through the private sector. Then as the other domains are the gender roles, needs, and time use. So when gender roles, this is everything related to roles and stereotypes, right? That sometimes are very harmful for women most of the time. Gender roles has an immense impact on employment, entrepreneurship, community and civil society as well, leadership, and also policymaking, measurement, how we are measuring the benefit of tourism, right? So we need to understand this. About the needs, when I'm saying needs, I want to say that we really have to identify women's needs and also men's needs in order to reduce gender inequality. This is very important, right? We don't want to promote gender gaps. No, I really want to know your needs, and I really want to know your need. So, but what I'm going to do with that identification, I want to reduce gender inequality in tourism. And besides, I'm going to put at the core of this identification women's needs, okay? Please, you don't have to forget that women suffer quite a lot gender discrimination, because gender discrimination based on gender has an immense impact of women, right? So if you are going to identify the needs of women, we need to consider this kind of situations as well. And time use, as you may know, women and men do not share in most of the countries unpaid care and domestic work. And this is something that we have to include when we are developing tourism, because it's something very important for women to have better and safe employment, to be in leadership positions, to participate in an active way in community and civil society. So this is another point that I would like to stress here. Then we have assets and capabilities. And with assets and capabilities, I really want to stress that with assets, at global level, women have many difficulties to control and to access to and to control over many resources, right? We are talking about money, land, property, decisions, many time, for example, is another resource that we in some points we lack sometimes. So the assets, the lack of assets sometimes prevents women and girls accessing resources that are key to get the benefits from tourism. So this is one of the main achievements that we have in this domain. Then we have cultural norms. And this is about, for example, how important are the law in order to reduce gender harmful cultural norms, right? So we have to think about this as well. Then we have power and decision making. This is about leadership. And then we have gender-based violence. And gender-based violence is a very important domain that I would like to highlight. And when I am talking about gender-based violence, I'm talking about, for example, sexual harassment, violence at the in a particular organization, in a particular company. I am talking also about, for example, sexual exploitation of women in tourism. I am talking about children exploitation, sexual exploitation of children in tourism as well. So we really, I really want to highlight this because now I think that tourism should promote standards to reduce gender-based violence at the core of tourism, and to reduce also gender-based violence in other sectors, sectors that are very important for tourist development as well. So this is the matrix. So in order to really give you a better picture of this, these are the 6 domains, but in the horizontal axis, we have, as you know, the level of analysis that you can find in the second global report of women in tourism. We really think that these are the key level of analysis that you should consider when you are elaborating your rapid gender assessment in tourism. And as I told you, the matrix is very flexible. You can adapt this matrix. This depends in the context where you are, right? So to summarize this, the matrix will help you because you are going to display your main question here, right? So when you are answering this question, you are going to be able to write your rapid gender analysis in a narrative way. This matrix also will help you to include a discussion of gender inequality and problems with the domains of analysis. And this matrix also will help you to include an analysis of what is working very well, what is working well, and what can do better. So in order to give you like a kind of tips to really understand better the benefit of this matrix, let me tell you something. From a gender analysis point of view, in general terms, we have 3 types of causes, right? We have the intermediate causes, we have the underlying causes, and we have the structural causes. So if you really understand, and I'm going to give you some examples right now, what are the difference between these causes, you will be able to formulate better questions to display in your matrix. Why I'm saying this, sorry. Let's start with the first cause. The first cause is the intermediate cause. This means that this cause is closely connected to the problem that I want to solve. In some point, it's very easy to solve because it's quite linked to the gap that I already know, right? The gaps that I have in my matrix 1. So for example, I'm going to give you some question examples related to this cause. And it will be how many women are in leadership position, for example. If one of my gaps is the lack of women in leadership position, my main question will be how many women are in leadership positions? What is the profile of women that are in leadership position? The profile is something very important because sometimes we don't have, for example, Black women leading tourism. We don't have Latin American indigenous women leading tourism. We don't have women from different social classes leading tourism. And this is something very important, right? Because we are a wide range of women and we have many needs, right? This is our 2 examples of questions related to intermediate cause. Let me tell you another example. For example, to what extent do women working in tourism know their working conditions and rights? Maybe the gaps that I have in my first matrix is about the lack of working condition in women. So maybe one of my actions is going to create training capacity buildings to disseminate rights and working condition among women working in tourism. So the main questions in order to do that action is going to be this question that maybe I'm going to place, I don't know, in the power and decision in the box that link power and decision making and employment, right? Another question that is quite interesting and linked to the intermediate cause is, for example, what are the main studies or analysis in my context that stress the implications of COVID-19 in women in tourism? So, for example, Mira, she has right now, if I am not mistaken, Mira, the lack of studies on women and the consequence of COVID-19 in tourism, right? So this will be a very good questions to place in this matrix in order to be able to address that gap and then to be able to create a particular action that is going to reduce the lack, to address that gap or that challenge that you have in your matrix number 1, right? So this are questions that are quite linked to the intermediate causes. So let's learn the second one. As a second one, we have the underlying causes. This is quite linked to services or harmful belief. So as question, for example, we can find how is the quality of the infrastructure when providing safe and better working conditions to women in tourism? For example, let's think about the housekeeping department. They need a lot of infrastructure to have safe and better conditions in tourism. Another question could be how many ethic codes or regulation on sexual harassment in the workplace are considering tourism? Another question could be how many companies are guaranteeing childcare facilities to women and men working in tourism? These questions are quite connected to infrastructure and to harmful belief about women in tourism as well, right? And then we have the last cause, and this is the structural cause. And the structural cause is quite linked to national legislations, policies, and gender norm. So as an example, for example, you have these questions. Is the current tourist strategy considering gender concerns? Is including networking? Is included a gender sensitive budget to overcome the gaps that we have? So another question, for example, is there in my context any agreement on gender and tourism? If so, is it considering a working plan and budget to accomplish its purpose? I have seen many agreements on gender and tourism and no budget is in place. So these are the 3 causes that we have. So if you really understand the difference between these 3 causes, you will be able to create better questions and you have to displace this question. There is no need that you place questions in all the boxes. You can choose. Maybe in my rapid gender assessment, I'm going to work employment and entrepreneurship, and I'm going to link these questions with gender roles, needs and time, and gender-based violence, and that's it. You have to define how you are going to complete this matrix, because this is a rapid gender assessment. You don't have to fill out all the boxes. If you want to carry out a gender analysis, a big gender analysis, maybe that is the best time to fill out all the boxes that you have in this matrix. So these are the essential elements that you need to know to use this matrix. This matrix is very useful to maximize the benefit of your rapid gender assessment in tourism. Please apply this matrix in your own context, taking into account your own priorities in terms of challenge and gaps. Okay, so we are going to start the next model. So welcome to this workshop on rapid gender assessment in tourism. In this model, you will learn a checklist and important, very essential tips that are going to improve your rapid gender assessment. So thank you so much for your attention. So I really want to offer you extra tip for your rapid gender assessment. This checklist, it was developed based on my own experience conducting rapid gender assessment in tourism. So I really want to share this kind of thought that I formulate as questions. But I think that this checklist is going to maximize the benefits. As you may know, this checklist is based on my own experience, but also is going to be based in the matrix number 1 and in the matrix number 2. I'm going to explain you this now. So the first questions that you really have to consider is this one: do I identify the main topics that my rapid gender assessment seeks to address? And so these questions is quite linked to the matrix number 1, right? So the matrix number 1 is going to help me to say yes when I have to face this question. The second question is, do my research objectives capture what I want to learn and advocate through my rapid gender assessment? So I really have to think about my research objective. Are my research objective linked to my matrix number 1? Are these research objectives linked to my matrix number 2? It is a very good idea to review your research objective when completing matrix number 2, because maybe you are going to make some changes to your research objectives, because after completing matrix 2, you're going to have a better idea of what you want to do. So please always come back to your research objective and take it a look. Okay. The third question is, do I show a comparative analysis pre and post COVID-19? This is a very important question. I mean, this is one of the main priorities of the center stage project, right? We really want to emphasize the importance of comparative analysis pre and post COVID-19, because we really want to know what is happening in tourism from a gender point of view to restart tourism. As it was mentioned in another model, when you present your matrix number 1, we don't have enough of data to really know what are the consequences of COVID-19 in women working in tourism or women linked to tourist development. So we really need to capture what is the reality, why this is happening, and how this is happening, right? Another question is, do I know the causes of the barriers found during the analysis? So when answering this question, try to think if you formulate your question for matrix number 2 based in the 3 types of causes: intermediate, underlying, and structural causes. Try to think about this all the time. Another very important question to consider is, am I using the main sources that capture gender concern in my context? This is quite linked to data collection, secondary data collection. Did I include the main resources that I need to really understand what is the current situation? Did I review the law in my context from a gender point of view? Did I review the main regulations? Did I review the main assessment that are going to give me information on the gender's dynamics in tourist development? So try to find this kind of information that are going to be very useful for your rapid gender assessment. Try to look for assessment that maybe are not considering tourism or gender assessment, but it doesn't matter, because this type of assessment are going to be very useful to really include gender equality in tourist development, okay? Another question is, did I ask for this disaggregate data? This is a very important question. Please always deliver these questions. As you may know, because it's in the second global report of women in tourism, the lack of data, sex disaggregate data in tourism is one of the main concerns that we have right now. But this is not only happening in tourism, this is at the global level. Gender sensitive data is something that we really have to push forward. At the global level, we have many challenge on this, for example, data related to the use of times, data related to how women are exposed to violence or to harassments. We also have a lack of data to really understand the intra-household inequalities. And this is very important because, as I told you in session number 1, the vast majority of women that create their own businesses, they do it in their houses. So this is the kind of data that we really need to capture in tourism. We also have the lack of data to really understand informal employment in tourist development. This is another lack of data that we have, or health concerns. As I show you in the matrix number 2, the last domain is gender-based violence, and gender-based violence is quite linked to health conditions to guarantee a health services well-being for many women, right? And tourism should capture this reality, should include this concern in their own development. And data is one of the main concerns, not only because we have a lack of data, because we also have a lack of technical, we have the lack of technical professionals that are going to be able to produce gender sensitive data in tourism. And this is quite linked to measurement, to policy making in tourism as well. So for that reason, this is a very important questions that you have to consider as a checklist for your rapid gender assessment in tourism. Another question is, did I find any resistance or opportunities in gender equality in tourism that should be highlighted in the recommendation? So here we are in the final steps. We are covering the final step of a rapid gender assessment. We learned that in session number 1. So as I told in session number 1, recommendation is very important. We have to include a very strong items on recommendations. So it will be very nice if you can highlight what are the main opportunities, how these opportunities are going to lead to very concrete actions, and also what are the resistance or challenge in order to reduce gender inequality in tourism, and what are going to be the actions in short term and medium term that my rapid gender assessment is considering. Then we have another important questions. Am I including the main needs of women's organization based in my context? Did I consult them? These two questions are very important. As you may know, the second global report of women in tourism is stressing on this. It's very important to include civil organization, mostly the women's organization. Most of the time, they are the ones that they have a very good understanding about what is really happening with women in a particular context. So we need to include their needs, their concerns in our rapid gender assessment in tourism. And the last questions that I include in this checklist is, am I including concrete actions, including budget, to push forward gender equality in tourism under a broader gender analysis? So concrete actions, yes, but we also need the budget to put in practice that concrete actions. Try to include in your rapid gender assessment a working plan, for example, a budget, stakeholders that maybe are going to be the responsible to put into practice that action. So try to be very concrete with the action that you are going to include in your rapid gender assessment in tourism. So I really would like to also offer you these tips. So let's start with the first one. So rapid doesn't mean brief or incomplete. A rapid gender assessment is not a summary, right? It's a gender analysis, 100%. The only difference that you are going to include actions that are going to be completed in short terms and medium terms, right? So this is very important because sometimes I have reviewed some rapid gender assessment that are incomplete, actually, that are a summary of many information. So for that reason, I told you that the matrix number 2, because you have the main questions there, is going to help you to answer your questions in a very narrative form along your rapid gender assessment, okay? This is a gender analysis. And always try to, yeah, I think that's very important. Consultation to women's organization, as I told you in the previous slides. This is a key part for your rapid gender assessment. Another tip is check the gender concerns related to industries linked to tourism. As you may know, tourism is a mainstream activity and is quite linked to other kind of sectors and also to other field of studies of concerns from a gender point of view. For example, I'm going to give you some examples: circular economy or blue economy. You need to understand what are the gender challenge in these two fields to really understand how important is including gender equality when we are making the link between tourism and blue economy or circular economy. So try, or maybe informal economy sector. You have to really understand what are the gender concerns in informal employment in general terms, and then make a zoom and try to capture what are the main challenges that are going to affect tourist development, right? Another point is include men and boys. This is at least for me, is very important. We need to include them because they are also a key part to reduce gender inequality at global level in tourism and also in other economy sectors. When I am including men and boys in my own work, this is, let me explain you this like this one. This is not about men, this is about masculinities. This means how we are going to promote a positive masculinity that is going to allow to reduce gender inequality. For that reason, it's very important to include them in our own work as a gender specialist in tourism. Another tip is about sometimes qualitative information should not be considered as an anecdotal information. As I told you in session number 1, secondary data collection is a foundation for 90% of the gender analysis at global level. So qualitative information is very important, right? For primary data collection, qualitative information is very important. We are in the field, we make interviews sometimes. Some rapid gender assessment are based on interviews as well, or in consultation, or in assessment that were elaborate based on qualitative information. So qualitative information is not an anecdotal information, it's the key information because it's coming from the field, it's coming from the beneficiaries that are going to see the positive impact of the actions that you are going to include in your rapid gender assessment. And qualitative information is even important for a statistic, because if a statistics is not backed up by a good qualitative information, interpretation of that data, of that statistics, is not going to be gender sensitive at all. So we really need to push forward the importance of qualitative information in your own rapid gender assessment. Another point is a gender gap should not be the comparison between men and women. For example, a gender pay gap is the lack of data. A gender pay gap is the lack, for example, of tourist policy making from a gender point of view. These are gender gaps. So this point is very important because sometimes the people think that a gender gap is only the comparison between men and women. It is, for sure, but we have another gender gaps that we have to face as well to be able to integrate gender equality in tourist development. Then try to write your rapid gender assessment thinking of all the overlap discrimination that one single person is facing. I mean, for example, Black women working in tourism, maybe they face overlap discrimination because they are women and they are Black, or maybe indigenous people as well, indigenous women, or maybe women from different social class, they face other type of discrimination that are overlapped. So we really need to unpack that kind of discrimination to have a better view of what we have to do in our own work as a gender specialist in tourism. And the last point, and of course, write and disseminate your rapid gender assessment for a transformative change in tourism. I have checked many rapid gender assessments, and the vast majority of them are gender neutral rapid gender assessment. This means that the impact that this work is having in the reduction of gender equality in tourism is neutral. It's not very effective. So try to write, try to think about your rapid gender assessment from a responsive or from a transformative point of view, because this is going to be very useful. And through your work, we are going to put forward sustainability in tourism as well. So we are finished these very important models on essential tips to maximize your effects and outcomes of your own rapid gender assessment in tourism. So thank you so much for your attention. So hopefully all these tips are going to help you to carry out your rapid gender assessment in tourism. So this is going to be like a kind of homework, okay? So the homework is going to be the following. I'm going to send you matrix number 2, and you have to identify by using the gender responsive tourist analysis matrix, the most appropriate domains and level of analysis relevant to your rapid gender assessment, okay? Then you have to fill out, you have to complete actually the gender responsive tourist analysis matrix by placing at least 6 questions based on your priorities. This activity should also be based on the challenge and gaps matrix. So it was a pleasure to give you this workshop. I really enjoyed the process. Thank you so much for the discussion, for your feedback, for your work. So thank you so much. And please don't forget to watch the rest of the videos that are linked to this workshop. Thank you so much for your attention.